Controversial title, but hear me out. Because while I was watching it for the first time, Breaking Bad was meeting and surpassing every expectation I had set for it. Every critically acclaimed episode ended up being fantastic, and I could see why the show was so highly praised. However, there was one exception, and that was the very final episode. I knew going in that Felina was possibly the most critically acclaimed final episode of all time. I also knew that Breaking Bad had never disappointed me up until this point. And yet, my reaction to the final scene was just...
okay.
The worst part was, I couldn't articulate why. Clearly something about it felt underwhelming enough for me to feel let down by this finale in a way that no other part of the series has, but I couldn't exactly put my finger on it. Did I expect more from Jesse? I felt the same way about the finale after El Camino, so probably not. Did I want a more solid conclusion from Skylar and Marie? That probably played a part, but didn't feel like it quite encapsulated my full reason for feeling this way. But several years have passed, I've rewatched parts of the series, and I have a better grasp of why I feel this way. If you can't relate to how I feel at all, maybe you can take something out of this video by getting why someone would feel this way. To begin, one important thing to consider when it comes to finales is how much it really unifies the series. Think of any good ending and chances are it would conclude the thesis statement of the series. The Wire shows the cyclicality of the issues plaguing the city. The Sopranos gives its main character consequences for his decisions as a way to express the messaging regarding those decisions. The Leftovers gives us his stance on faith expressed through the conclusion of a character who struggled with faith. I'm being vague to avoid spoilers, but if you've seen those shows, you know what I mean. Felina, on the other hand, it doesn't express the central theme of the series in any way. That honor actually belongs to Ozymandias. This is by far the best episode of the show because it gave us the climax. Everything had paid off in the most heartbreaking way imaginable, and the reason this felt right was because it paid off the central idea of the series, which was that consequences are inevitable. This idea is baked into the structure of the show. Breaking Bad is a fast-paced thriller with ever-evolving stakes because every little thing has a domino effect where it leads to something else, which leads to something else, which leads to something else, which leads to something else, and over until Ozymandias. The show is amazing at keeping momentum for this reason. Consciously or unconsciously, the idea of actions having consequences became engraved in our minds. It's made extra clear with the plane crash in season 2. The whole point was to show how Walt's decisions have consequences no matter how unexpected they were. This is why Ozymandias felt so earned. Its existence was not random, it had a purpose. It was actually saying something which tied the whole series together and thus justified the existence of everything that had come prior. This is one reason why I don't think Felina is some 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Ozymandias and Granite State had already concluded the point of the series. Felina did not add to this anymore. It just feels like something tacked on for the sake of tying up loose ends. Not only does it not add to the themes though, but it actively detracts from them. The previous 2 episodes have shown us the consequences of the series. Felina, on the other hand, takes away from that. It doesn't only take away, it exists just to take away. It ties up loose ends, but thematically speaking, where's the necessity in tying up those loose ends? There's genuinely no other reason for this episode to exist besides making things go from bitter to bittersweet. Walt manages to give some of his money to his kids, comes clean to Skylar, helps to prevent her conviction, saves Jesse, gets his revenge, and dies relieved. This isn't even a controversial claim because to my understanding, people love this episode for that reason. They appreciate that the series was willing to give Walt one final episode just to make things a bit better, but I find this to be weak. It doesn't feel like the actual logical conclusion to everything that had been thematically built up. In fact, it's diametrically opposed to what was being built up. To clarify, I am not saying that the consequences were erased. There's actually a pretty impactful scene where Walt looks at his baby, realizing that this is the last time he'll ever see her. Nothing was fully undone. He's still hated by his family, his money is confiscated, and Hank's still dead. If Felina actually did somehow erase the consequences of Ozymandias, it easily would have been the worst ending of all time. But as it stands, my issue is the softening of consequences. Softening which only detracts from the point. And this is most emblematic with Walt poisoning Lydia. Like really, what was the point of this? There was a whole plotline where Walt managed to enter the cafe and then open its stevia packets, then place ricin inside without anybody noticing, then somehow reseal the stevia packet. This convoluted subplot was just added so that Lydia could die and the ricin could be used. It's just tying up loose ends for the sake of tying up loose ends. It feels inorganic. It feels like the episode exists just to placate the audience. This might sound like I despise Walt and feel immense glee at his suffering or whatever, but that's far from the truth. Even after all the awful things Walt had done, I wanted him to just live out his final days in peace. I wanted everything to go smoothly, and it crushed me seeing him miserable after everything fell apart. And that's good. I should feel crushed. It's great drama, it's impactful, and most importantly, it's what everything had been leading up to. The impression I get is that the show could not commit. It had Walt face consequences for his actions, but that would be too tragic, so it also tacked on one more episode just to gratify the fans. It wanted to have its cake and eat it too. It took a half measure. There's nothing inherently wrong with a bittersweet ending to Breaking Bad, but the order of episodes matters too. There's a difference between Walt gets some victories, but he faces consequences, and Walt faces consequences, but he gets some victories. The latter phrase changes the framing of the ending entirely. What am I supposed to take away from him getting more victories? But let's say I had zero actual issues with the ending. Let's say everything was perfectly in line with the themes and concluded them. It still wouldn't be some 10 out of 10 masterpiece in my opinion. There's nothing challenging, there's nothing thought-provoking, there's nothing even that impactful. The episode is 2 episodes after the climax, so how much more catharsis can it really squeeze out at this point? Walt and Jesse's final moment was cool, I guess. It was nice to see Jesse finally free. Him refusing to shoot Walt was an effective way to show him refusing to be controlled by Walt. As if we didn't see that the whole season, but whatever. Solid moment, but nothing that amazing for me. Walt and Skylar's conversation was good too. Walt seeing his kids was easily the best part of the episode. But aside from that, it's just decent. Walt admits his more selfish motivations to Skylar, which is good, but it's not that much of a payoff, is it? It seems like he's finally becoming conscious of his motives, but he was already aware of his more ego-driven motivations back when he was explaining the Empire business to Jesse. So really, the scene just pays off Walt lying to Skylar about his motives, which isn't bad, but again, there's not too much catharsis that can be had after the previous 2 episodes. Walt also has Elliot and Gretchen give some of his money to his family, which is alright. Nothing too special, but also nothing awful. It sounds like I'm just going through a checklist of which parts of the episode to talk about, and that's because that's exactly how the episode is structured too. There's no elegant flow, there's no cause and effect, there's no build up to a crescendo. It's just Walt having a list of loose ends he needs to tie up. He solves one issue, check. He solves the next issue, check. Then the next, then he dies. Like, what am I missing here? At best, this episode is an okay way to tie up loose ends. At worst, it's unremarkable fan service that goes against the point of the series. It's not awful by any means, but it's certainly nothing to the level of what came before, and nothing even close to the endings of other critically acclaimed series. It's just a mid-finale to an otherwise great show. That said, statistically speaking, there's a very high chance you disagree with me. I hope I brought something new to the table if that's the case. And if you agree with me, that's great, because I'm very hard pressed to find people on the internet who do. Let me know what you thought of the episode down in the comments, and remember to subscribe if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.